You know, if we actually, and not to get off on a super tangent, but if you go back to, if you read the book like The Fruit from the Poisonous Tree or The Creature from Jekyll Island, no, it's not about, Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde.
Right.
You know, it's about the creation of our money.
Mm-hmm.
And, the lack of gold that supports it and all the other bullshit. And it's going to segue right into the next generation of what we're doing now.
Yeah.
There's a coin shortage or this. It's all, if you connect the dots, you'll see where everything just jumps out at you.
Yeah.
Once you see it, you cannot unsee it.
Right.
Once you actually see proof and you go, holy shit. That,
that ties
basic.
That ties with what's going on with Diddy these days. With Diddy. Did he do it? I think he did.
He did. He sure did.
It's like the whole Bieber thing with him, and he was 40 or so at the time, and this 15-year-old kid, and you saw that whole thing, and just saw a few other things that he was interacting with Bieber over the years with that, and all of a sudden you're like, oh yeah, that's kind of creepy, because you're right, you can't unsee something like that after you see it.
And the crazy thing is, how many people are just complicit, and they sit there knowing, but they're too afraid of the real consequence. The real consequence here is that you may find out, and I've found out in my career, as we're going after those that create TAs, if you will. We think that they're the threat. We actually end up being the aggressor. We end up being the bully. We end up being the one that muddies up the water, if you will.
Yeah.
Well, nobody pays attention to 30 million people. I don't care if they're good, bad, or indifferent. They could all be amazing people. All 30 million come in through the southern border, and 3% are bad actors. Okay, what's that? What is 3%? 90,000?
Yeah, doesn't take too many, really. So,
divide 90,000 by 50. You see 90. Let's say 60. Okay, 60. Let's say 60,000 bad actors. Yeah. By 50 states, that's 12,000 per. That's divisible. So you got 12,000 bad actors per state.
It's a hell of a lot of people.
That's more than some National Guards.
Yeah.
And we're supposed to do what? And we're supposed to not protect our our rights, and not have our heads on a swivel. And everybody that posts this kind of shit, you're just a Trumpster, or no, not at all.
Yeah.
This is straight up. You either are with it or you're not.
Okay, T, I've got another video of a gentleman here who talks about the fires. Looks like you've got a new screen there. You're in a different spot, so that's good. Now we can see you. Anyway, let me get your reaction about this guy who's talking about how it's fired.
Hey, so this is a reply to a comment on a video I did back in 2016 about the 9/11 truth movement, and basically debunking a bunch of major claims about it. And Building 7 is one of the ones that comes up quite a bit, because essentially there's been a lot of misinformation put out on conspiracy videos like Loose Change about the condition of Building 7 and things said about it. Building 7 collapsed because of the debris from the North Tower, destroyed about 25% of the building and did a bunch of severe structural damage. Plus, it led to another really intense fire. The whole pullout thing, which people say was a term from demolition, and it very well might be, but it's all...
I think you know, pull it.
This guy is pull out. Yeah, that's something that his parents should have done.
Something a little bit different. Yeah, exactly.
Also a term that firefighters use to basically call it and abandon a building if it's too far gone. Hopefully they...
Oh, really?
So there you go. See, he's an expert.
It's a fireman's term.
Fireman's term. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah. So, what do you think of his little comment there? I think he's...
Hey, we're when we all have just enough knowledge to be dangerous. What can you do? It's pure entertainment. But he had content. It made it so that it's here. Not that we're any more important than he is, but it is what it is.
Well, we're talking about it, and that's the opinion of a lot of people, which is fine. We're just here to kind of offer other opinion, other evidence to make people kind of wonder maybe that's not the case. So,
Well, his percentage of that, the damage was more, was actually a whole lot less than he's saying. 25% of the building? Well,
a lot.
yeah.
That-
I mean, 25% is a significant chunk. How they determine 25% is crazy. Either way, it was exterior, not interior. That was so pronounced, if you will, that it went into itself. That's still that same damaged exterior fell onto it. So, or within it, if you will.
Yeah.
Yeah. The fact is that building had not enough significant damage for it to come down into his footprint.
No. As far as I've seen and heard, and I'm not an expert, but yeah, there has never been a collapse of a building due to fire like this ever before this, and I don't believe ever since.
Not that I've ever seen.
Yeah.
I mean, so it would have to have been a wood structure.
Latest next on a fiery disaster unfolding in Sao Paulo, Brazil this morning. A 26-floor tower is now a smoldering mountain of debris. It collapsed in flames earlier today.
One person is dead, although it still hasn't been officially confirmed. We understand that there's probably about another 4, perhaps 5 people that are missing, but the firefighters haven't officially confirmed this yet. Although it's understood that the majority of the families managed to get out okay. But the rescue operation with dogs are being deployed now on the ground to hunt for survivors or indeed the remains of bodies. And also we've seen the entire area has been evacuated and another building has actually caught fire, but that seems to be under control but extremely damaged also.
Sam, as we look at these pictures, obviously the fire burned so intensely, and we know, timeline-wise, it was about 90 minutes from the time the fire broke out to the time that building collapsed. What are they saying that may indicate, and has there been any discussion early on of a cause to this?
Well, basically it's this. It was a 26th floor building without working elevators, with extremely precarious electricity, occupied by 90 extremely poor squatting families. The firefighters are saying that in these kind of situations it's very common the elevator shafts are in fact used to dispose of trash or rubbish, and that they may have become filled up with trash and rubbish. Also, that the rooms are partitioned using hard wood that's been salvaged from the street, chip wood, kind of very flammable woods basically. And with the lack of electricity that you have in these places, often the electricity is taken from the street. It's basically stolen. It's hooked up via wires from the street, and then perhaps there has been an electrical fire there that's spread out of control, and everyone's got out of there, or trying to get out of there in time, and that's.
I mean, let's think about something here. Timothy McVeigh, Oklahoma City bombing,
Right.
had basically a Penske or rental truck, whatever the hell it was, Ryder
Right.
vehicle, and it blew off the whole face.
Yeah, did this whole huge concave explosion.
That was an actual explosion, and it still didn't come down into its footprint.
Right. That's a good point. I didn't think about that until you just mentioned that. I'm like, that's an excellent point.
That would be a DTA. That would be a domestic.
Right. Exactly.
So, yeah, we've got a lot more details to pick apart. But what it comes down to is, regardless of what our narrative is, we're not trying to, force a square in a round hole. This is justifiable. Everything that we're saying is justifiable.
Right. So I'm going to present another video here where they kind of talk about it. I believe there's an engineer who's being interviewed in here that talks about this whole thing. Let's get into that, and then let's get a reaction on this.
That particular page. So I want to get into the World Trade 7 Center. So allow me to, I'm going to share my screen here, and I want to go through just a little script that I planned. I normally try to keep this conversational, but because of the content and the type of thing that we're dealing with, it's very difficult to sort of talk about all the components. I mean, I've been through your report, and let me put that up here. In fact, for those of you who are interested, Dr. Halsey has a very, very comprehensive report.
And I will put links to all of these videos and then some that we don't even get into because it just would take too much time on this podcast. But I'll put links into this description when I get the video up online. At
the link below here, you can even just do a search for UAF WTC7 and it'll come up in Google probably right away. So, and there's a whole bunch of materials on that particular page. So I want to get into the World Trade 7 Center. So allow me to, I'm going to share my screen here, and I want to go through just a little script that I planned. I normally try to keep this conversational, but because of the content and the type of thing that we're dealing with, it's very difficult. 7 is not a symmetrical structure. So you can see it looks sort of like a trapezoid. And if we look at a plan sort of view here, you'll see that we have one end, which is the north end, which is wider than the south end. And so the top end, the north end, is about 100 meters, and the south end is about 75. And you can see shaded is the outline of the Con Edison substation. Now, in terms of the timeline of events for that day, 8:46, American Airlines Flight 11 crashes into the North Tower of the World Trade Center. And unfortunately, it crashes into the 93rd and 99th floors, and it kills all 92 people aboard. And then at about just after 9 a.m.
If there were people on board. And
Exactly.
A lot of people are going to go,
so
there were people on board. I think, okay.
So an alternative play on this, if you will, if they say, oh yeah, well, where'd all the people go? Unfortunately, it doesn't take much.
Right.
I mean, you really, if they can put, steam or climate control in the, a little fresh air through that duct, anything can knock you the hell out. Especially if they're masked up and, in a plane.
Yeah.
If they're being, if it's being directed and they're able to shut things off. Where are the black boxes?
Right. They're supposed to survive quite a bit of damage. That's why they would have survived this. Right. Exactly.
So, they melted. Okay. Just because they found remnants of the thermate down at the bottom and the little all right. So for an example, thermite, different variations and concentrations and so on. If you ever held the giant sparklers, okay, that'll give you an example. So those fuckers are spitting and sputtering and doing whatever. That's the kind of welders, for instance, when they use the sticks and they're making their welds. There can be a mess, especially if they're sloppy welders. You can drop dimes all day and make whatever the hell they want to call it. Yeah, you get so you learn enough terminology, you can hold the conversation. But in this particular case, all the remnants, just like the passport that like the guy ID or passport three blocks away was found. This is obviously the guy that was flying the thing. Come on, man.
Yeah.
I sound like what's his face in the White House. Come on, man.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Joseph Robinette Biden Jr. Esquire Limited the Third. You mean?
Oh shit! That rolled off the tongue like smooth.
Yeah, I've said that once or twice before. Well, should we move ahead?
Yeah. Oh yeah.
let's see.
I'm curious as hell of this guy.
Yeah.
AM.
I haven't seen either one of these guys.
Flight 175 crashes
You
into
seen
the
the old guy
south
here?
tower of the
Leroy,
World Trade Center between the 77th and 85th floors, killing about 65 people aboard. At about 9:59, so just before 10 a.m.,
let's
but not what I would call a substantial amount. I mean, you could see the back end of the building was pretty much intact. But later in the day, I believe it was 5 p.m.-ish or so, the tower goes down. So that's
pause that for 1 second.
Kind of where we're at.
Yeah.
And
So he gave the timeline, which is one of the questions that we mentioned earlier about by the time the planes impacted World Trade 1, World Trade 2. But then 5 o'clock or so, whatever hell he just said, later on that day.
7-8 hours later, something like that, I think.
So with all of the access getting to that area, you couldn't have a pizza delivered, let alone a truck or a whatever. You know how many shipments? This isn't like, I don't give a shit if it's the most concentrated space age tech, or debt, whatever material that could possibly be. You have to drill out, you have to, pull out certain, make weak spots. You don't, no matter what you do to a house, even in a fire, for God's sakes, there's still structure that, that retains its strength. You weaken up certain areas, obviously things are going to come down into their footprint and not topple over onto an adjacent building. There was already going to be debris field,
Right.
with everything, but it's a matter, it's scattered and moved relative to how it fell. But if the damage was on the opposite side, on the narrow part of rather than the wide part, there's all these different, you go back and you check. It's like, oh, this is where, where it was. And, all of a sudden you see the top, on the, the top part of that raised roof area. It looks like you would, have a stairwell that you could walk out of that area. I would love to get the footage. There's a lot of footage of what that building looks like.
Yeah.
Coming out onto that roof.
Mm-hmm.
Then you'll know where it folded. So, sorry about interrupting you.
No, that's what I want you to do. I want this. We have you on. So let's go a little bit before. I might jump ahead because he gets.
No, I'm not an expert on the on any of that at all.
Yeah.
This is what I'm going based on is hearing and working information that was being processed in an official capacity.
Right.
And then whether or not I was directly involved, that's a whole different, it wouldn't be on a podcast.
Right.
It would be a different environment altogether. And that I can't even be leading with that, but I'm going to tell you right now, you can walk by and hear conversations or be within earshot, and you should not have heard, and you have to respect the titles that they were and are to this day.
Yeah. Gotcha. All right. So we'll get back into this a little bit more, and I'll jump ahead, like I'm saying, if it just gets in too much.
Oh, this is cool.
I want to get to the collapse part, and
yes,
here's where I think 79. Pillar 79, I think, is one of the ones that were weakened first or something like that. And we watched the video. You saw how, because we saw it from the other side, from the top down, from up here in. So this is the side collapsed first with that little box penthouse thing that was on top. That collapsed into it first. Then it kind of accordioned over to in this picture, the left. This is north, south, west, and east, of course. So it should not have fallen straight down. There's just no way. It doesn't make any sense. So,
and I'm sorry, I'm going really quickly here, but we have to focus in on some of the details of the report. And there were a number of different reports. And the basic story goes that the fires caused some expansion of these beams. And this particular beam here, this 79, if you're watching this is of particular importance. This is sort of the critical beam that everybody has been really focusing on. and the top end of my screen is the north end, so it's this northeast corner that's important. So there's a number of beams that go across and attach to a girder, which attaches to column 79. And we have some design drawings and that sort of things. This is a schematic that I took out of Dr. Halsey's report, and you can see here that there's some structure. So this column right here is 79, and then we have some beams and that sort of thing. Okay, so I'm gonna stop there, and I have a question for you.
Very friendly, whereas a steel building has limitations. You've got an awful lot of, shall we say, a frame. You got a lot of shop work to do to get a shape that's other than straight, and so there's disadvantages if you want to go to highly irregular curvature kind of conditions to go steel. But something like this, where it's all straight sections for the most part, is probably a good choice to go steel.
I mean, is there anything here that raises any flags in your mind that says, hey, there's something designed poorly or so? I mean, it's built. I mean, they say it's built to code. The fact that it's in a regular shape, it's not rectangular. Does that cause any concern?
Well, it causes complexity and load distribution. It tends to be. I felt like the design of this building was not the most desirable. I thought there was a lot of complexities in it that I didn't think it needed to be there. Since, but in terms of code, I did not see anything in this building that flagged a code violation or flagged a situation that would make it be questionable.
So he kind of gives that point. I mean, there really wasn't much to make this building fragile, in a sense, that it could have weakened it from the debris that supposedly fell on it from the tower, first tower 1, I think it was. What are your thoughts on that? Did I lose you again?
The building, I'm still here.
Okay.
Can you hear me?
Yep, I can hear you now.
I'm going back and forth to notes that I have. Unfortunately, as you know, I'm limited to the devices
Sure.
that I'm holding. So
Agreed.
if I go to a different field, can you not hear me now? That's
No, I
just
can hear
one too.
Nope. I can hear
Okay.
you.
So all right, I'm back.
There you are.
All right. So when I go to refer to notes, the NIST stated that there was a certain amount of the temperature that a jet fuel is 980 to 1500 degrees jet fuel.
Right.
And the beams may have been compromised or weakened because the temperatures actually reached much higher than that. And there's no chance in hell that office contents of your traditional fixtures and whatnot, open air and plenum ceilings and all this different plenum ceilings, meaning there's a cold air return that cycles everything. The ductwork, this drop ceiling is actually part of the cold air return. That's the plenum area. They have to use specific cables, plenum cables, like low voltage, any of the network cables and so on. They have to use plenum cable because of the toxicity of the smoke, and so people don't become overcome.
Right.
In this case, those beams had to have been liquid in that area to where, or at least so weak that they would have continued to come down instead of there wasn't a ball of muck. It was just not there.
Yeah.
It's the debris that they retraced. They went through this debris field and picked it apart. They salvaged things from it. Obviously, they were going through this.
Right.
But it got to the point where they did enough of the dog and pony show where they're grabbing things off and they're trying to isolate it, and they trying to put together in a different hangar, all the plane parts that they found, and the puzzle masters are putting everything back together again. Whoever Humpty Dumpty's relatives were,
right,
co-workers. They tried to put all that shit back together after these two gigunda friggin' buildings came down. Yet they had no debris from Pentagon. There was no seats. There was no, it was bullshit. By the way, there is footage of a missile-like structure,
right,
or trajectory going into the building.
Well, that's a good tangent, because I always said, why was it that we only had one camera angle on that whole thing?
Oh no, they had many.
Shit ton of cameras. They
had many.
Yeah, but we only saw the one, that little side angle,
right,
of the plane or the object entering the building from that one side.
Well, here's the thing: your patriotic duty took the. There's a lot of pissed off people. So back in the day when they said it's illegal to have gold, we're going to collect on your gold, right? Well, it's similar when they wanted to collect all the footage. If you have any footage of that could help us, please submit it. Blah blah blah. We're talking 2001. Not everybody had a phone like we do now.
Yeah, tapes, VCR tapes and shit like that.
We're still behind the times. Analog and IP wasn't as predominant in the camera field.
Right.
For citizens, a lot of footage, but corner stores, and you're talking in the Pentagon area. What's that? Arlington, near Arlington Cemetery. Geez, I was just down there too. I was just down there trying to think of that, but that's been all. Oh man, that road, the traffic sucks too.
Oh yeah.
Nobody saw that damn thing.
Yeah.
I was just down there end of September for my field of work, the TSCM. We had a conference down there, and I'm just thinking of what a time that was. Staying at one of the buildings. Woke up to my car being towed, and going through the process of retrieving it was quite fun.
Yeah. Sounds like it. Yeah.
Well, they give you these passcodes or whatever to extend your parking payment.
Oh yeah.
And God forbid you fall asleep by 9 o'clock. The goddamn car is gone by 9:06.
Yeah.
So, no alerts, no nothing. Mr. High Tech that I am, I missed that boat. But,
ironic, but yeah.
Yeah. Well, hey, I'm the cobbler. What's that? The cobbler needs a pair of shoes or something.
Yeah,
I don't know what that.
The cobbler's kids are the last to get shoes or something like that.
Last to get shoes, yeah, something like that.
Yeah.
So you've got a lot of. There's just so many things that people haven't answered. Their tongues are tied. They're bound by secrecy.
Right.
So you're dealing with classifications. You're dealing with it's not like a non-disclosure agreement. This
Right.
is the non-disclosure agreement. You're either doing it for patriotic duty and national security, or you're actually aiding and abetting the
You're the
your
enemy
boss.
Yeah.
There's a lot of really good people that had their lives destroyed by their superiors. So, a lot of them.
Well, if we get if we get back into the tenants in the building, this might maybe have you ask a few more questions in your head then, for everyone out there who doesn't know who was in this building. So they call it the Solomon Smith Barney building. They basically occupied, from what this looks like, geez, 50 to 75% of the building. I'm going to pull it up on the screen right now so we can see it. Let me do full screen here so everybody can see it. So basically a 45-story building is about 47 when you add the two top penthouse, whatever they are. But this is interesting. On floor 25, what does that say? Right? Oh, Central Intelligence Agency, Department of Defense. Smith Barney, Standard Chart, Smith Barney. New York Office of Emergency Management. Well, that's interesting. Federal Home Loan, First State, Solomon. Vacant. 14th floor looked like it was one of the only ones that was actually vacant, according to this, because this was up to 2001. I think it was 87 to 2001. And then this is where it gets interesting. T, you'd mentioned this before. Very interesting tenants in here. First of all, United States Secret Service on floor 7. Same thing on floor 9. And then all of a sudden on 10, they do half of that as well. And then the SEC. And I'm not talking about the football conference. Isn't that interesting? Wonder what all those people were doing in that building. That's a lot of government shit going on there with offices and everything. That happened to come down.
So, you have I wish I could do a split screen to even show you, but there are floors with mechanical services. I believe it's 46 and 47 that have that. You have Solomon Smith Barney was, I think, based on some of the notes I have, 28 through 45. Now, to know organizations like the Central Intelligence Agency, they would not have a known floor. They don't have known floors. They don't put signs. You may even have a sign of, let's say, a lobbyist or something like that. They go in as normal state workers. You would not know.
So how is it that they're listed on this Wikipedia article then?
Well, Wikipedia is Wikipedia, but that can be, they can throw that in there, and obviously they have deniability. They could say, that's not the case. But typically in that building, they would have, they're secured. They're in their secured areas because of, so, the DOJ, the FBI has a domestic presence, and the more and more as they piggyback on these different laws and so on and so forth, those that have foreign reach have a tendency to cross over, and they dabble because such and such. We're all immigrants now, right? We're all immigrants. We came from immigrants, but now it's an international thing. As long as it's justified and they have liaisons that go in between these different offices, it's literally just another another division, if you will, of the same thing. They scratch each other's backs, and they are very, very secretive. They may obviously, if the TV are on, they'll say something like State Department, or they don't have to say shit. They can say that they're, selling knives for Cutco, for God's sakes. Not to say that Cutco has any affiliation. They do not. Right. Great knives though. Just as an example, they don't have to say shit. And you would never know it if they sat in front of you unless they came out. And you're like, oh shit, you actually, that's you? You do that, you work with that? So there are a lot of different divisions that that spur off with these budgets. Yeah. The technical side is, if you look up Incutel, for instance, there's another division of it. You'll see like apps like Wickr, WICKR. If you look at the funding and so on, you'll see a lot of more publicly known names that have been out released that normally you never knew. You know, guys, if you look at a famous name or, you know, infamous, whatever, however you want to look at it, Collapse of Bldg is one of the known. Yeah, he's been with them for years. Matter of fact, I think he's still with them, but doesn't matter. But by looking at him, he looks like a grandfather. You know, it looks like a good old, you know, pretty cool dude to crack open a beer. That's who we have working in these. It's not like everybody's, you know, The Rock, you know, or Bustamante or whatever. You know, there's some fucking brilliant people that could rock that position that it would never even be, you know, that haven't even thought of doing that. But, you know, it's
never be looked at twice. Oh, okay.
Yeah, never be looked at twice.
Yeah.
You know, you never know it. I'm on the technical side, so you know, not to insinuate anything either. It's there's affiliations with contracts within contracts within contracts, multi-layered. Yeah. And you know, when you are, a lot of the time you get escorted into different sites, and you know, and so on. As long as you have a visitor's pass or something, whether you have clearance for it or not, somehow, some way, there's a lot of lazy in the mix that you may be in an area that you shouldn't be. You know, and 15 minutes of being held up, or you can't. Let me tell you something, dude. I can speak from direct experience. As we were going into some of the Congress, when we went to Congress, we were actually going to see for the 9/11 to make Patriot Day, you know, like a national holiday, if you will.
Right.
Actually, we were going to try and make it Labor Day, 9/11, because everybody was, you know, laboring during the time that they were, you know, pulverized, turned to dust, and, you know, fell on deaf ears. But had a chance to. We went to like Hillary Clinton's building there, met some pretty sharp assistants that they had down in the city. You know, we're from upstate New York, so we had direct access to the Albany office. We were told that she was down in the city, so we saw a lot of the players, if you will, down there. And I know I'm way the hell off track, but I'm trying to reel it back in. Going in, I had a health issue that was similar to what we were talking about earlier tonight. Where I had to find a bathroom, something fierce. Oh yeah. And I was in my suit, ready to have a meeting, and my two colleagues that I was with, I'm like, "Go ahead," you know. And you know, I got into this building, and I didn't have any creds to get in, and I'm looking at the men's room, so it was pretty devastating. But there was hope. I came out and I see the golden arches from a distance, and I get up closer, and I mean, I was scooting. It was a fucking kiosk, so there was no bathroom there. But I turned like super quick into the Smithsonian and found hollered across the floor to the guy that's doing security. I'm like, men's room, like that. He's like, downstairs. So I took the downstairs and I used the family one. Got in there just in time. Oh my God, I would have never made the meeting.
Got it close there. Yeah.
Hey, that's my life, man. You know, God, for anybody that has ever had a gallbladder surgery knows. So we got to just be cautious, stay healthy, eat healthy, homie. You know, all puns. No, that was good. I like that.
Yeah. So I got a question to kind of get us back on track.
Yeah,
because we can go on forever, but that's cool. I just kind of want to get back. So, any of these tenants raise any alarm bells with you? Like, okay, I can see why. Maybe let's just
IRS was on 25.
They didn't show IRS on 25. They showed Department of Defense and Central Intelligence Agency.
No, 25. IRS is on 25 with the DOD and agencies, administrative type stuff. So, no, that's the kind of thing where if they need to see shit, there's like this intermingling. There's liaisons, within that area. So, if I'm not mistaken, IRS was in the 24th as well. Are these the notes that I sent you? Did I sent you a link?
You did, but I couldn't find them, so I just looked them up again.
Okay.
So
That's a wiki that you're on?
Yeah, it's just wiki, and so what I did is I also looked up what Solomon Brothers is, Solomon Smith Barney, and they're just so people know, because this might be important, because they were probably involved with a lot of this, because this CIA was in this building, and Secret Service and SEC and a few others. A lot of information sitting in this building that might be good to disappear if needed, but looks like that they were they're a multinational investment bank headquartered in New York, large investment banking enterprises, very profitable from the firm from Wall Street. They were acquired by Travelers Group, and then became its Citigroup after that in 97, 98. And so I would imagine that they were probably pretty involved with a lot of commodity trading here. This says in the 80s. Yeah, I mean, you could go home mortgages and stuff. I mean, there's a lot. That's basically who Solomon Smith Barney is. Their multinational investment banking.
Yeah, investment firms that, if you look up the history of what happened with Solomon Smith Barney, a lot of that'll paint through. You saw like the Hartford is in there. There's Securities Exchange, American Express. They're the powers that be. If there is ever an issue, you just go downstairs or upstairs, or send a memo in a tube. So that's the kind of thing that that you had a lot of access. What is it? Is this that wiki?
Yeah, this is the wiki. This is the Solomon page. I'm going to put a link to all these pages that I have on this, so you can look at them as well. Make a comment below if you'd like to let us know what you think. I mean, do you think it's coincidental? And I don't believe in coincidences, but do you think it's coincidental that all these government agencies are in this building with Solomon Smith Barney? Am I just reaching? Tell me I'm just reaching. I'm just trying to look at both sides. We can sit here forever. I believed that this was legit. And yeah, okay, I can believe the fires took down the bed. Then I'm just like, well, wait a minute. This is a bunch of bullshit. Okay.